What is up, guys? Kayak Mike here. In this video, we're going to go over how to measure and submit fish in online catfishing tournaments. The only board that is legal at the time in 2024 is the Muskie Bumper. You can purchase the Muskie Bumper sticker if it's still for sale. OCT10 is 10% off the Muskie Bumper website. I believe they changed their website to fishbumper.com. Let's confirm that's correct. So yeah, it's fishbumper.com it's called now. That's where they sell their Muskie Bumper. OCT10 for 10% off a board this year. But let me go into the details. We're going to go over a blue first, a channel second, which is the identical factors, and then a flathead last. We will go over some examples of some disqualifications, and disqualifications and or penalties that we can assess, and show you how I go about judging. Alright, first things first. Catfish has to be right side down, left eye up. The rule book currently states you might have to see the left eye. That is not the case, so if that's in the rule book, I do apologize. The left eye does not have to be visible. There's many cases where a catfish doesn't have a left eye. The most important thing is the orientation is right side down, left side up. Period, end of story. That is for blue cats and channel cats. Everything I'm about to say for a blue cat holds true for a channel cat. You cannot be manipulating the length of the fish in any fashion. You have to be able to see the entire fish in the photo. If the picture was submitted like this, it would be rejected because I can't see the entire fish in the photo. If the picture was submitted like this, you would get some form of penalty or full rejection because I can't see the bump. Depending on how egregious the bump is, I get to make the judgment call of penalty or full disqualification. The more that you remove away, if it's submitted like this and you can only see this much of the fish, it's more than likely going to be a full disqualification. If you submit something like this, where it's clearly bumped, it's clearly there, but you can't see the full fish, I'm probably going to do, half inch, quarter inch penalty. Same thing this direction. So let's say you submit it like this. Well, you're only going to get credit up till where the picture cuts off. Even though it's clearly a 37.5 inch fish, if you submit it like this, you're only going to get credit for 36 3/4 because that's where it cuts off. You can only judge what you can see. As far as your identifier, whatever your identifier in the tournament is, the entire identifier must be in the photo. I can see the entire identifier right here. This was a picture from Andrew Green last year at one of our tournaments. This was the identifier at our in-person tournaments. I hand out identifiers. However, you'll see in a couple of the next photos, identifiers can be a combination of letters and numbers. The identifier must be in the photo. So again, criteria for channel cats and blues: right side down, left eye up, or left side up, either one. Left eye doesn't have to necessarily be in the picture, but it's a good way to remember. Right side down, left eye up. You cannot be manually manipulating the fish in any fashion. The entire fish must be in the photo. The fish's nose must be clearly bumped in the photo. You cannot be manipulating the fish in any fashion, if I didn't already say that, because I do know some people who have gotten straps for their fish this year. Don't be strapping the fish down super tight so it stretches them out. That strap, just lay it on top so you prevent them from flopping around. Perfectly fine. And then what gets judged is the furthest point touching the measuring surface. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, let's say this was the furthest point touching the measuring surface. Well, since it's off the board, it would not count. I would go up to and find the furthest point touching the measuring surface, and that is what you would be scored on. In this case, the furthest point touching the measuring surface is 37.5 inches. Also, the numbers must be clearly legible. We'll go into that in the reject reasons here in a little bit, but the numbers must be clearly legible. If you're in an event that requires you to be in a certain vessel, that vessel must be in the picture. If you are fishing in one of our national kayak events, the kayak has to be in the photo. Whether you banked up or not to take the photo, an identifiable piece of that kayak has to be in the photo. My suggestion, if you're bank fishing from the or with the kayak, or if you need the bank to measure a big fish in the kayak, still measure it like this. with the board in the kayak, because that's a guaranteed way to not get a DQ. Unfortunately, Kayak Catfish had a picture last year where he took a picture of a fish. He was bank fishing in one of our events. He got there by his kayak and he's bank fishing, but he took the picture off to the side. The kayak wasn't in the photo. I had to reject the fish. I don't care that he's Kayak Catfish. I gotta play it straight with everybody. I don't if you're my friend or not, whether you're famous or not. Everyone gets the same rules. So that is how you do a blue. Same exact rules for a channel cat. So we will zoom in here a little bit so you guys can see. Right side down, left eye up, nose is bumped. You're more than welcome to keep them hooked while you do this whole thing. In this case, you can actually see his line. He is still hooked. You are more than welcome to put them on a fish grips while you picture them. As long as I can clearly see they're still bumped, that's fine. Sometimes people will angle those fish grips up though, and it's blocking the nose, in which case you're probably going to get a penalty of a quarter or a half inch, depending on how egregious it is. But he did this tournament. This is an example of a tournament where he was in multiple tournaments at the same time. HOOK was the identifier in one of the events, and this was our Hoover tournament identifier last year. So here's his Hoover tournament identifier. Here's his identifier for another event that was going on that he was part of. And yes, identifiers can be laid on top of the fish. Perfectly fine. I don't care if the identifier is laid on top of the fish because it's not obstructing anything that I need to do. The entire fish is clearly in the photo. Everything's legible. He's bumped. He's right side down, left eye up. Again, channel cats and blue cats have to be right side down, left eye up. The board is clearly straight. He reaches his max length at 32 inches, and he's good to go. If you are in a slot tournament, you must be trying to achieve max length in the photo. So what I mean here is, you see how he has this upper tail straight and the body's essentially straight? This would be trying to achieve max length. If you were trying to achieve max length and there was a slot limit, you'd be fine. If I feel like you're spreading the tail to get under that slot limit, you will have a disqualification on that picture. I'll do another video specifically on slotfish. But again, I'm going to beat a dead horse. Channel cats, blue cats, right side down, left eye up. Left eye doesn't necessarily have to be in the photo, because not all catfish have left eyes. Also, the way they, smaller catfish sometimes where their side fins stick out, they kind of lean off to the side. Perfectly fine if the left eye don't get in the photo. I don't care. Entire fish in the photo. Achieve max length. Don't alter the fish in any fashion with your hand. You can use fish grips. You can leave them hooked. Don't care. Their mouth can be open. Don't care. Mouths being opened. Seriously, who cares if their mouth is open? All that matters is you're not altering the fish yourself. They are naturally laying on the board. So this fish right here, perfect. Next, flathead. Flatheads can be measured on their bellies. You can technically measure them right side down, left eye up if you want to. I'm asking you not to. Please measure flatheads on their bellies if you can, if you have the means. So here we go again. The identifiers clearly in the photo. This guy, Andrew, was in 1, 2, 3, 4. He was in 5 different tournaments. So he submitted this single fish to 5 different events, which is perfectly fine. He's clearly bumped. Now, flatheads have an underbite. The upper lip clearly isn't bumped. I'm making the judgment call that the bottom lip is for sure bumped in this photo. I'm not going to force you guys to stand directly above a flathead and, take the picture just to show his underbite is bumped. This is no more than, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch away from this bump board. If that, more than likely 1/8 of an inch. So yes, I am confident that, that the bottom lip is bumped here. He is not altering the fish in any fashion. You can have a hand on the fish just to hold it down. Perfectly fine. Other people can help hold down the fish. Don't care. Even in the National Kayak Trail, if you have someone near you and if you have someone near you and you have a really big fish and you're worried he's going to flop off the board, or you're worried for your safety, they are more than welcome to come over and put a hand down on it just for security reasons, as long as you're not altering the fish. Andrew clearly isn't altering the fish, and it's the farthest touching the board that counts. So Andrew submitted this perfectly. If you're looking at this, it may appear that this fish is 38 inches long. This fish is not. Let me zoom in on his tail. Flatheads sometimes have their fins prop up. Sometimes they won't fly flat, they prop up. In this case, his fin propped up a little bit right here, and none of this is touching the surface. He submitted this at 37.25. This is clearly touching 37.25 right here. This may or may not be on the measuring surface, so I don't know if I would judge based off of this fin, but this is clearly touching 37.25. So this is a great example of you have to submit it where it's clearly touching the measuring surface. It may appear as if this is a 38-inch fish, but it is not. It is a 37.25-inch fish, and that is due to the angle of the camera. But again, blues, channels, right side down, left eye up. Don't be altering the fish. Have it achieving max length. Take the picture, have your identifier in the photo. Flatheads, measure them on their bellies. Make sure they're as clearly bumped as possible. They have an underbite. I understand that. I have judged thousands of these fish. Make sure it's clear that they're bumped. This is clear enough. It's perfectly fine. The entire fish is in the photo. It's not cut off anywhere. And he submitted it based off of what is touching the measuring surface. Alright, so now that we have explained how to measure a blue, a channel, and a flathead, let's move over to some rejection reasons. And if you're watching this and I'm using one of your examples, I'm sorry, I only have so many real life examples that I can supply. So if this is one of your fish, I do apologize. Don't take any offense, I just had to find some examples of things I DQ'd in the past. So this fish, you may ask, why doesn't he have the musky bumper? There are other affiliates I work with that don't all abide by the same rules. In this affiliate, they don't force a musky bumper. But this is why I suggest getting one. The numbers have to be clearly legible. So if we zoom in here, if any of you guys can tell me what these numbers are, I'd be greatly appreciated, because I can't. I cannot certifiably tell you what any of these numbers are. This is a full rejection. This is why I strongly suggest everyone going to a musky bumper, or a board manufacturer that has very clear numbers when you take your picture. I would avoid catch. Those numbers get really tough for catfish because the farther you get away, the less their numbers show. They don't really have a product yet that's good for us. Really, the only product worth anything in our scene right now is the musky bumper. But affiliates, if you want to maintain these, just know when I'm going in here and I'm judging these fish, I can't make any kind of leeway for this. This is a full DQ. Another thing, is this fish bumped? Yeah, he's definitely clearly bumped. However, the bump isn't the best on this board. The musky bumper, it's pretty clear when a fish's nose is bumped. Now, nobody would ever argue that this fish's nose isn't bumped. However, why even risk having the chance? So the fish, everything was right, minus the legibility of the board. So this is a full DQ. If I cannot confirm the length or the inches of your submission, it is a full DQ. His identifier was in the photo, fine. The entire fish was in the photo, perfect. Fish is bumped, but I just can't read. It's just not legible. So this one, unfortunately, was a full DQ in this event. Moving on. This fish was not DQ'd. However, I will tell you why it could have been DQ'd. Amanda Johnson, I love you. Thank you for the example. So, Amanda Johnson, let's pretend this does not exist. Let's pretend this identifier right here doesn't exist. Let's say this is the only identifier that exists. In this particular tournament, SUNZ was the identifier. If she didn't just so happen to have this one right here, this would have been a full DQ because the entire identifier is not visible. Did she submit fish earlier in the day with this identifier? Yes, let me show you. Is it? Nope, that's the one we were just on. So this fish right here, it's clearly the same identifier in this photo that it is in this photo. However, I cannot use logic when I am judging fish. I have to use what is in the picture, period, end of story. Even though this is clearly the same identifier she's been using all day, If this was the only identifier she had in this photo, this is a full DQ. Sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. That's one of those black and white rules that we cannot bend whatsoever. If the full identifier isn't in the photo, like, is this clearly just half an S, half a U, half an N, half a Z? Yes. Does she have other photos using it earlier in the day? Yes. But it's still a full DQ because it's not the full identifier. The only thing that saved her here, she had a second identifier on the board. Now, somebody might say it's not right. It's upside down. Guys, if your identifier is upside down, I'm not disqualifying the fish. I don't care if the identifier is upside down, right side up, vertical, on the edge of the picture. It doesn't matter where or how your orientation of your identifier is. As long as it's clearly in the picture, this is clearly SUNZ. She just has it upside down. So what saved her in this instance is she had a second identifier, and it was fully visible. However, remember, if the full identifier isn't visible, if she didn't have this backup, this would have been a complete DQ of this fish. And last but not least, let me show you what I see. So this is a fish that I submitted, and just so everyone knows for sure, I will show you from the beginning, right here. So we're just going to go to my 37.25. This, you're going to see things that I see. You will not have access to anything from here on out. These are the things that I see. So, in here, you have to have your eSIF data turned on prior to downloading the app. And then when you download the app, you have to allow everything. It has to be able to pull your eSIF data over. It has to be able to pull over your photo, GPS, and timestamps. On your actual photos, wherever you take your photos, you might want to uninstall and reinstall it and allow it to do GPS and timestamp. You might want to go into your photo settings if you can't do that and update GPS and timestamp to all your photos. I'm going to show you two things. Right here, this little eye, this is your eSIF data. This is where you took the photo. So if I click on here and I zoom in, come on, zoom in. This is where I took the photo. And I don't care. Guys, when I drag Hoover, I drag in this general area every single time I go up. I don't care to show you my coordinates. Now, I ain't going to show you anyone else's, but my personal ones, I care less if you see them. So this is where I took the photo. This is not where I submitted it from. Those are I get to see both. I get to see where you took it, and I get to see where you submitted it from. So just so you know, if you take all your photos and then submit them at home, I do see your home address. Like, just being perfectly clear. But if this photo right here isn't on a body of water or the body of water that event was supposed to be on, it's a full disqualification. I scroll down here. If I click on this, I can see the latitude and longitude of this is where I submitted the photo from. Go ahead and click on that. This is where I submitted the photo from. Now, it's very similar to where I took the photo. Why? Because when I took the photo, I submitted the picture essentially immediately, which is why they're almost the same. But if you don't submit the photo from where you took it, these two coordinates are not going to be the same. So those are two things that I get. What else? I can see where it was submitted to. I can see all the notes. If I DQ'd this fish for whatever reason, I would see it. And then let me go to, and I'm going to bring this up over here real quick so you guys don't see it. Bring it back over here. Let me scroll in a little bit. I'm not going to scroll any farther than that. So on my side, there's a heat map so ignore this down here. That's just stuff that I was working on. But this right here, this is a heat map of where everything was submitted from and all the eSIF data. I'm not going to scroll in anymore because it'll start giving out specific spots. But when I go and judge a tournament, I go to the eSIF data map and the submission map, and I can see where everyone submitted their fish from and where everyone took their pictures. That's just a quicker way for me to go through all the entries without having to click on every single one. Also, I don't necessarily know which fish was caught where. I just have to make sure all the little dots are on the correct body of water. In this case, they're clear. That's Hoover. If you guys can't tell, that's Hoover right there. They're clearly all on Hoover. If I started zooming in anymore, it would start giving spots away. There is one and one person only who gets to see any of those spots, and that's me. So you do have to have faith in me as your administrator not to share those spots. I don't. I post everywhere I fish on YouTube. I publicly announce where I'm fishing at these tournaments, so there's nothing you have to worry about from me. No one else has access to this page but me. I don't have any other administrators that I allow access to, do anything to judge, anything like that. So, alright, in the next video, you guys will learn how to submit a fish. This was all the rules on what you need to do before you submit the fish.